Hi guys, my name's Brittany and this is my channel all about how to have a simple, affordable wedding. But today I want to discuss kind of a bummer topic, and that is how not to have a super spreader wedding. So if you haven't been following the news lately, there have been people having weddings in the past few weeks and the past few months that have ended up becoming sort of hotbeds for spreading COVID to people who didn't even attend the wedding. In some cases, people have died who were not even guests at those weddings. And an even crazier thing about some of these cases is that the couples did seem to put in place certain precautions and protocols to keep their wedding guests safe, but either the guests didn't follow those precautions or the precautions were not strictly enforced, and so we ended up with these horrific results. One couple who got married actually had their wedding featured in Vogue, only to have their wedding pulled from the Vogue website a few days later because many people on Martha's Vineyard were testing positive for COVID. Probably the most notorious super spreader wedding that has happened this year was in Maine, where the couple again tried, it seems, to limit this from happening by making their guest list only 55 people. But despite this, something like 175 people ended up testing positive and 7 people died who didn't even attend the wedding. There was a couple in Long Island who seemed to just blatantly disregard health rules altogether. They had something like 113 guests. 40 guests and staff ended up testing positive. 159 people had to quarantine, and 6 schools were closed because of this wedding. They had violated state law with the number of guests that they invited. They had public officials come out and criticize them. The venue lost its liquor license, and the entire community of Long Island was pretty pissed off. I watched interviews of a married couple in Ohio who felt so bad about their wedding becoming a super spreader event that they actually came out publicly and gave interviews, and they said that they had taken precautions. They'd given out things like masks and hand sanitizers to all of their guests, but nobody listened to them, nobody used them. The few people who did socially distance and wear masks were their grandparents, and 3 of their grandparents ended up testing positive and 2 of them ended up in the ER. Which just goes to show you that even if you are doing everything right, if the people around you are not, it may not make a difference. That couple did have a dance floor, so people were dancing really close to each other and not wearing masks, and that's really where the problem was. I know also at that Maine wedding that people were having their temperatures taken as they entered, and there were no fevers reported. So the bottom line is that we can put all sorts of safety protocols in place for our weddings, but if we're not actually strictly enforcing them, if guests are not actually following them, then it's kind of like they don't exist at all. They're just sort of there to make us feel better, but they're not really doing anything. So why is this happening? Why are people literally losing their lives because of weddings? People are tired. People want to see their loved ones. People want to pretend that everything is normal. And the biggest reason why this is happening is because our human psychology is telling us that nothing bad can happen to us when we're with our loved ones. So logically, we know that the virus does not distinguish between whether we really love a group of people or not. The virus doesn't really care what the nature of the event is, but we still have this false sense of security when we're around people who we know and love. We'll let our guards down, we'll take our masks off, we'll kiss and hug and laugh really closely with people who we know and love, thinking that nothing bad can happen to us. And that's where we see problems happening with these weddings. Weddings are also really different from something like going out to a restaurant, because at weddings you're mingling a lot with people from different tables. There might even be a dance floor going on. And often at weddings, people are traveling from outside areas and aren't quarantining before and after the wedding. So what can we do? The best thing that we can do is simply to postpone our weddings and have that big normal wedding sometime in the future. And trust me when I say that that moment when you decide to postpone, you will feel so relieved, and probably so will a lot of the people around you. That's not to say that this isn't a difficult decision and that you might not lose a bunch of money. I know lots of people have lost a bunch of money. It's also been really horrible for wedding venues and vendors this year, but honestly, the health and safety, your lives and the lives of other people, are more important than that money. If you do want to get married now or soon, you have to put precautions in place and be really strict about them. So that means having a tiny guest count, like 20 people or less, depending on where you are and when you watch this exactly, but having a tiny guest count and then really actually following through with things like everybody wearing masks, everybody social distancing, everybody just staying with their own households, washing their hands, quarantining before and after the wedding. And if you get invited to a wedding as a guest, politely declining, or first finding out how many guests are invited, and if it's more than you feel comfortable with, politely declining that invitation. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that that doesn't mean the wedding planning has to stop. What you can do in the meantime to stay excited is to craft, to make your wedding decor, to do some wedding dress at-home try-ons, to take this time to write the perfect wedding ceremony, the perfect vows, to pick out the perfect wedding readings. Just because you're not having your wedding right now doesn't mean that you have to stop planning your wedding. You could even get quickly legally married now and continue to plan that big fun wedding for when this whole crazy mess is over sometime in the future. It'll be way more fun to have a wedding when you can actually relax and dance without the stress of thinking that this beautiful night is somehow going to result in people losing their lives. You don't want that, and you don't want to end up on the news because of this horrible thing. So please, let's all agree to just have teeny tiny weddings for now, or to postpone our big weddings to sometime in the future when we can do it safely. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.